Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to being well-informed. Today, we're taking a really raw, unflinching look at something often hidden. It's the incredibly complex reality of trying to find sobriety while, deep in the trenches of parenthood. We want to move past the usual stereotypes here.
Absolutely. It's a topic that demands honesty. We're talking about deep personal recovery for parents who are struggling. And we're drawing on some powerful stuff, memoirs, literature on women's recovery, the core texts from mutual aid groups. Our mission today is really to map out the psychological journey of this crisis and explore the tools, psychological, spiritual, communal, that can help someone move from that kind of total internal isolation towards, well, a liberated life.
Okay, let's start with that initial crisis. The sources talk right away about this profound split inside. If you're struggling, you might come into recovery just numb, not really knowing your own feelings because they've been drowned out for so long.
That's exactly it. Your inner values, the loving parent, the responsible person you want to be, they feel completely cut off from your actual life, which, because of the substance use, is often dominated by fear, maybe distrust, definitely dishonesty.
That gap, that dissonance, it must be incredibly painful.
It is. And the substance becomes this emotional lock, doesn't it? It stops you from really facing how deep that split goes.
And it often starts so deceptively, right? It's not immediate misery. I was struck by one account mentioning how alcohol first felt like power, like confidence, this idea of, I just need to learn to drink right and I'll be okay, a false sense of control.
That's the hook, isn't it? That initial feeling. But for people who are susceptible, that feeling of control is, well, it's tragically short-lived. We see stories of people going from trying to drink right to nearly daily drinking within like 6 months, blacking out almost every time.
Wow, 6 months. That rapid escalation must feel terrifying from the inside. When does that internal alarm, that little voice, start saying something's wrong?
Often long before the big obvious consequences hit. Even while still drinking, there's usually an inner knowing, maybe your conscience. It starts whispering or maybe shouting. The control is already gone. And that creates this immediate sense of self-betrayal.
You know you're acting against yourself, but you can't stop.
Exactly. The compulsion is already digging in its heels. And that sets the perfect stage for the intense secrecy and shame we need to get into.
Okay, let's dive into that secrecy, especially thinking about a parent trying desperately to keep up appearances. That compulsion to drink even when things are falling apart. It just takes over everything.
It really is the engine of the disease. So many people struggling, they genuinely want to stop. They want to get better. But they're driven by these powerful inner forces they often don't even understand. Once the nervous system gets involved pathologically, that compulsion just takes the wheel.
And for a mother dealing with the constant demands of a baby or young kids,
It forces them into these really desperate, sometimes heartbreaking secret rituals just to get a moment's peace or maintain that illusion of normalcy.
the anecdotes in the sources are just brutal in their honesty. They really paint a picture of that desperation. Your whole day becomes this frantic logistical exercise, hiding the evidence, figuring out how to get the next drink without anyone noticing.
Yeah, think about the detail in that hiding ritual described. The immediate panic, then relief of getting rid of the empty bottle. That specific image. The empty Mickey stashed discreetly in the garbage pail downstairs. Evidence gone, poof.
Oof, gone.
But then, instantly, panic because there is no more. That relief is fleeting. It's immediately replaced by the need to start the cycle all over again.
And this drive for secrecy leads to these incredibly elaborate plans. They seem totally irrational from the outside.
But they make perfect sense inside the logic of addiction. It's this terrifying choreography. Like the sequence described. First, get the baby formula. That's the reason for the trip out.
Right, the cover story.
Then the liquor store. Then a convenience store for a mixer, like Sprite. And finally, the act itself, locking yourself in a grocery store or coffee shop bathroom.
Using the changing table as the excuse, that specific detail. Leveraging the most basic need of your child to hide your own drinking. That feels like the absolute rock bottom of shame.
It's devastating. And right after these hidden moments, the wave of self-hatred just crashes down. The source describes the person stumbling home, crying, trying to soothe the baby, but also maybe trying to soothe themselves, saying, "It's okay, baby." I say, "It's okay, we're okay."
Oh, that kills me, that duality. The loving parent is still in there.
Absolutely. Desperate to reassure the child.
Yeah.
but they're buried under layers of pain and this compulsive behavior they can't seem to control.
And the fear of being found out is constant. It must shape every single interaction, every decision.
Yeah.
There's that story of the woman pacing her drinking meticulously so she'd never seem drunk and reeling around.
Yeah.
Terrified of being seen as that stereotype, the drunken woman.
That fear connects right back to how she was raised, the societal pressure. Be the nice girl, the competent one. So the reality of her compulsive secret drinking was just completely alien to her own self-image, which makes it even scarier.
And this whole structure is held up by denial, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Denial is fundamental to the disease. It lets the person completely fail to see that alcohol is the problem. They compare themselves to the worst-case scenario, the person on Skid Row, and think, well, I'm not that bad, so I don't really have a problem.
Or they blame everything else, trauma, a bad relationship, work stress.
Right, anything but the drink. They're constantly walking on eggshells, scanning, did my partner notice? Did my boss suspect?
It's mentioned that the internal consequences, that constant self-criticism, can actually feel worse than getting caught, losing caste in their own eyes. What does that really capture?
Losing caste. It means losing self-respect, falling from grace in your own estimation. You become your own harshest critic, just relentlessly tearing yourself down. It creates this paralyzing state of, depression and fear, often bordering on sheer terror.
And nobody sees that part.
Rarely. The world sees the drinking or the results of the drinking and often lacks sympathy for that invisible internal agony. The secrecy just keeps it all locked inside, feeding the cycle.
Okay, so to figure out how to break that cycle, we really have to look under the hood, right, at the brain science. Because this explains why just trying harder, using willpower, usually isn't enough against this level of compulsion.
Exactly. That's the necessary pivot. We need to understand why the substance is sought so desperately in the first place. What function is it serving?
Dr. Gabor Mate calls it an emotional anesthetic. That seems pretty accurate.
It really does. It acts like this powerful tonic against really difficult internal states, overwhelming fatigue, deep boredom, maybe feeling alienated or just not good enough. For someone struggling with social anxiety or just the sheer emotional weight of everyday life, especially parenting, alcohol offers this immediate but temporary fix.
Like permission to just be something else for a bit.
Yeah, permission to do and be whatever feels necessary at that moment, a quick social lubricant or maybe just fuel to get through the day.
But here's the cruel twist, the anxiety paradox you mentioned. People drink to relax, but alcohol, which is a depressant, it actually causes anxiety. Walk us through that, the A and B process.
Okay, so when you drink, you get that immediate effect. You want the calm, the lowered inhibitions. That's the A process. Easy enough. But your body is always striving for balance, for homeostasis. It sees this sudden drop in neurological activity as a kind of threat.
So it fights back.
It fights back hard. It kicks off a powerful counterreaction, the B process.
And what does the B process involve?
It floods your system with stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline. Now here's the kicker. That initial relaxing effect, the A process, wears off pretty quickly, maybe 20 minutes after just one drink. But you're left with all this extra cortisol and adrenaline still sloshing around. So functionally, you end up more anxious than before you even took the drink.
Wow. So the cure is actually making the problem worse almost immediately. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline after the first splash.
That's a great way to put it. And this vicious cycle of anxiety gets cemented by neuroadaptation. Your brain literally changes in response to being hit with this artificial stimulation over and over.
And this starts in the brain's pleasure center, right? The nucleus accumbens.
That's the spot. Addictive substances hijack it. They flood it with dopamine way beyond anything you'd get from, say, a good meal or a hug. It's an unnatural, overwhelming surge.
So the brain has to protect itself from being constantly overwhelmed like that.
It does. It tries to build tolerance. It actually starts to decrease the sensitivity of its own receptors. And it releases something called dynorphin. It's like a natural internal painkiller, which basically tries to turn down the volume on all that stimulation.
Which leads to that tragic situation where someone deep in addiction needs to drink but doesn't even feel good from it anymore.
Exactly. They might drink a lot, but get little or no actual pleasure. The high is basically gone.
Okay, that explains the diminishing pleasure.
Yeah.
But here's the really crucial piece from Robinson and Beverages' work. If it's not pleasurable anymore, why does the craving stick around? Why is the compulsion still so fierce?
This was a game changer. Neuroscientists realized the dopamine system, after being hammered like that, becomes permanently hypersensitive, not necessarily to the drug's pleasure, but to the cues associated with the drug.
Cues? Like what?
Like the sight of a bottle, the the time of day you usually drank, stress, a particular person, anything the brain links to getting the substance. They now think dopamine is less about liking the drug and more about wanting it. It drives the obsessive seeking.
So the brain becomes this relentless wanting machine, even if the liking is gone.
Precisely. This hypersensitive wanting system creates that compulsive drive, that craving, and it operates almost independently of whether you actually expect to enjoy it. The feeling becomes, I hate this, I don't even like how it feels anymore, but I have to have it.
And that overrides everything else. Logic, consequences.
It often does. The craving persists even when facing catastrophic losses, job, reputation, family. The wanting mechanism has essentially hijacked rational self-interest.
It's vital to remember, though, this hijacking isn't just random bad luck. There's that interplay of genetics and environment.
Right, the classic nature versus nurture dance. Genetics might influence your baseline temperament, how sensitive you are to stress or reward. But your environment, especially early life, plays a massive role in vulnerability. Dr. Mattei talks about how parental stress or depression in a child's early years can lead to a lack of emotional attunement.
Meaning the child's deep needs for connection and soothing aren't consistently met.
Exactly. And if those needs aren't met consistently, if that emotional scaffolding isn't built early on,
You spend your life looking for external things to manage internal feelings.
yes, that lack of attunement can be linked to later behavioral issues, maybe even things like obesity. If you don't develop internal tools for self-soothing, you're much more likely to reach for external anesthetics like alcohol to cope with life's inevitable pain, frustration, or fear.
So the science really shows the body itself is chemically wired for compulsion, overpowering rational thought. Which leads us to a really challenging spiritual idea in recovery, the need to surrender.
And that's the bridge, isn't it? From the science of compulsion to the path of recovery. And it starts with step one, admitting defeat. Complete powerlessness over alcohol. Every natural human instinct fights against that admission.
Yeah, that phrase, bankruptcy is going human concerns, it sounds devastating, like total failure. How do people even start to process that when they're first coming in?
Well, it is devastating initially. It means your whole way of operating, your mental framework, your ability to manage life, your self-control, it's all collapsed. It's a complete surrender of the ego, of self-will. But that admission, that hitting bottom and saying, I can't do this alone, is the absolute foundation. You have to concede. You cannot get rid of the obsession on your own scheme before you become truly willing to accept help.
Realizing that your own best thinking got you into this mess.
Precisely. Self-will just drove you deeper into despair. Admitting defeat is the first step towards freedom.
Okay, so once you get over that huge hurdle, the real internal work starts. Step 4, the moral inventory, and step 5, the disclosure.
The inventory step 4 is about digging deep for self-awareness, for rigorous honesty, and ultimately, believe it or not, for self-respect. But it's incredibly tough because the addicted mind is very defensive. We have this powerful tendency to blame everyone else for our problems.
It's their fault. If they hadn't done X, I wouldn't have needed to drink.
Exactly. We feel totally justified in our anger and resentments. That's where the community, the sponsor, becomes so vital. They help you gain perspective, see that your resentments aren't unique, your flaws aren't the worst in the world. For a parent, this inventory forces a confrontation between those compulsive acts and their deepest values about motherhood.
And then step 5, admitting the exact nature of your wrongs to God, to yourself, and crucially, to another human being. That seems like the peak of vulnerability. Why is telling another person so critical?
Because secrets keep us sick. They are the walls that isolate us from connection, from help, from reality. That old saying is spot on. We're only as sick as our secrets. Step 5 breaks down those walls. It disciplines the ego, lifts that crushing burden of guilt and shame you've been carrying alone. It's where the hidden inner life meets this shared human experience.
For women especially, maybe mothers who feel they've failed, facing that past must bring up intense self-condemnation.
Absolutely. Which is why the role of the person hearing that 5th step, the sponsor, a therapist, a clergy member, is so important. They can model what the sources call loving kindness. They listen without judgment. They help the person begin to learn the incredibly difficult art of having compassion for yourself.
Learning to forgive yourself.
Yes. And that self-acceptance is key to unlocking one of the biggest promises of this path. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. The past stops being a source of shame and starts being, well, a source of wisdom, a resource.
That acceptance then flows into step 8, making a list of people harmed and becoming willing to make amends. This feels especially important for anyone who's been in abusive situations or conditioned to always take the blame.
It's such a critical balancing act. Recovery isn't about becoming a doormat. It's about finding the courage to see where you were genuinely at fault, and just as importantly, where you were not. If you've been constantly told you caused someone else's bad behavior, it's terrifyingly easy to just keep apologizing, saying, I'm sorry for everything.
Instead of setting a boundary, like, I didn't like what you did.
Exactly. So the goal isn't swapping self-blame for playing the victim. It's finding that honest middle ground. Take responsibility for your part, yes, but also recognize when harm was done to you. This clear-eyed assessment is crucial for rebuilding relationships, honestly. And the inventory often uncovers not just the things you did, but the damage from sins of omission.
The things you didn't do because the addiction took up all the space.
Yeah. All the ways you dropped out because of drinking. Neglected friendships, missed birthdays, weren't emotionally present for people who needed you. A big part of the steps work is looking squarely at those broken connections, internal and external, and stepping forward with honesty to start repairing them.
So after dealing with the past, cleaning up the wreckage, the focus shifts, right? From sort of passively asking for help to actively participating in your own change. That's step 7.
That's a great way to put it. The traditional wording is humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings, which is essential. But for some, especially maybe women socialized to be more passive, it can feel a bit like just waiting for a lightning bolt. The sources suggest a shift toward a more active relational approach, recognizing that spiritual growth involves partnership and action.
Can you expand on that idea of collaboration? I ask my higher power to work with me, I do my part, and God does hers.
It reframes it as a dialogue, not just a request dropped into the void. It's saying, okay, I'm ready. I see these patterns, these shortcomings. I need help, but I understand I have a role to play too. Show me my part. What action do I need to take? This requires real willingness to be truthful, willingness to step into the unknown. It implies that your cooperation actually empowers that spiritual help in your life.
And that commitment to internal honesty continues daily with step 10, taking ongoing personal inventory. This seems vital for rebuilding self-trust after addiction has eroded it so badly.
It's incredibly powerful, particularly for anyone who grew up in a family or environment where their reality was constantly denied. If you were told that didn't happen or you don't really feel that way, step 10 is revolutionary. It's your chance every day to validate your own experience, to trust what you see and feel.
So those daily questions become anchors. What did I notice today? What felt true for me? What do I actually believe?
Exactly. And it's not optional, this daily check-in. The texts are clear. We're on a daily reprieve. What does that mean practically? Daily reprieve.
It means sobriety isn't something you achieve once and then coast. It's contingent on maintaining your spiritual condition today, right now. It keeps you vigilant. This daily practice means if you mess up, if you're wrong about something, you admit it quickly. You don't let small resentments or character issues fester and grow back into that isolation and despair that fueled the addiction in the first place.
And the outcome of all this hard, consistent work is a completely new understanding of freedom. It's not that chaotic freedom of addiction, doing whatever you want regardless of harm. It's freedom from and freedom to.
Freedom from the obsession with alcohol, freedom from crippling fear of people, fear of economic insecurity, fear of failure, and freedom too. Freedom to choose sobriety today, freedom to actually be yourself, to find peace, to grow spiritually. It fundamentally shifts your whole outlook from self-centeredness.
And importantly, the goal isn't just chasing happiness, which can be pretty fleeting. The focus shifts to something deeper, more sustainable.
Right. We're aiming for usefulness. Purpose. Happiness is great, but it can be knocked over by the first wave. Usefulness, contributing somehow, being of service, those are anchors. They're solid enough to withstand life's storms and give you a reason to keep going when things get tough. They provide that stable core.
And none of this transformation happens in a bubble, right?
Mm-hmm.
Recovery is deeply embedded in family and community. Alcoholism is, as they say, a family disease. It impacts everyone connected to the person drinking.
Absolutely. And for the family members, the partner, the kids, the parents, there's often a whole separate recovery process needed. To stop obsessing about the drinker's behavior, that's where Al-Anon comes in with its incredible wisdom.
Al-Anon's core message is liberating. The 3 C's. You didn't cause it, you can't control it, and you can't cure it. The crucial shift for the family member is turning the focus back onto their own well-being, their own recovery. And here's the beautiful irony. When the loved one stops trying to manage or fix the drinker and instead works on their own emotional and spiritual health, they actually create space. They give the person struggling the freedom to consider their own recovery.
Example becomes the most powerful influence, doesn't it? Nagging, pleading, controlling, that just keeps everyone stuck in the dysfunctional dance.
Exactly. And Al-Anon also gives family members practical tools for managing expectations. This is huge for stopping the constant cycle of hope and disappointment.
How do they learn to adjust expectations in a healthy way?
They learn to stop expecting an actively drinking alcoholic to behave rationally or keep every promise. There's that great analogy. Expecting reliable support or affection from someone deep in addiction is like going to a hardware store for bread.
It's just not where you're going to find it.
Right, so you adjust. You stop setting yourself up for that inevitable letdown by recognizing the reality of the situation, the limitations imposed by the illness. This helps loved ones make healthier choices for themselves and for their children if they're involved.
And throughout this whole process, for both the person in recovery and their family, the community, the fellowship acts as this essential support structure. Trying to do this alone is just incredibly difficult, maybe impossible long term.
Fellowship is the glue. It repairs those bonds of human connection that addiction systematically destroys. You hear stories of people sharing their deepest shame and finding others who just get it, who understand the rage, the pain, the absurdity. And the community doesn't coddle you, usually. They don't just tell you what you want to hear, but they promise to walk through the pain with you. That shared experience combats the terror of isolation.
And within that fellowship, sponsorship is like the personal guidance system.
It's the lifeline, truly. Finding a sponsor, someone who's been sober longer, knows the ropes, knows the pitfalls, is so crucial. Ideally, someone of the same gender, just to keep things simpler. They offer direction based on the hard-won experience of countless others. And the key is often willingness. Even if you don't like their suggestion, trusting that their guidance, rooted in these principles, might just save you from repeating old mistakes.
So the path to stable long-term sobriety really boils down to staying connected and actively participating, giving back.
That's the core principle.
Yeah.
Action, service, sharing your experience. Just getting up in a meeting and being honest about where you're at can be incredibly powerful, both for you and for someone else who needs to hear it. It's that whole idea, the more you give, the more you get. Sharing your story might be the key that unlocks someone else's recovery. This focus on service is ultimately what provides lasting relief from that self-obsession that fuels addiction.
Which brings us full circle to the 12th step, carrying the message and practicing these principles in all areas of life.
Right. The theme of the 12th step is described as the joy of living. And the key word is definitely action. Recovery isn't just about not drinking. It's a long period of reconstruction, touching everything. It means taking these principles, honesty, humility, tolerance, love, out of the meeting rooms and into your daily life. Your family life, your work, how you handle money, how you treat difficult people, all of it.
That's the real challenge, isn't it? Applying the same rigorous honesty and compassion at home, maybe when the kids are screaming or work is stressful, as you do in a supportive meeting.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
It requires putting life on a true give-and-take basis, constantly checking your motives, shifting your perspective on what's truly important. The goal is to redirect those basic human instincts for survival, connection, security, away from selfish ends and towards their true constructive purpose. #outro.
Wow. So this journey we've mapped out, from that deep, dark place of secrecy and self-loathing, hiding the empty bottle, to finding a life built on internal growth, honesty, and service. It's just a profound story of transformation.
It really is. And the healing is holistic. It touches everything. It brings that acceptance and serenity we talked about. But it also fundamentally reshapes relationships, even our understanding of spirituality. The sources even suggest things like sexuality can transform, moving beyond just behavior to become this genuine expression of connection, something alive and whole-bodied, a real path into relationship, not away from it.
And the most powerful shift, maybe, is how that dark past gets reframed. It stops being this source of crushing shame.
Yeah, it transforms into this unexpected, incredibly valuable asset. There's that amazing, empowering promise in the literature, something like, cling to the thought that in God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession you have, the key to life and happiness for others. With it, you can avert death and misery for them.
That just turns everything on its head. The worst parts of your story become the most powerful tools you have to help someone else. It's not about hiding anymore. It's about owning that experience, understanding that the wisdom you gained in the absolute depths is your unique gift to offer. It's someone else's survival guide.
It really highlights the incredible resilience involved in overcoming these deeply ingrained patterns, behaviors driven by brain chemistry and often deep wounds. And realizing that your struggle, your story of getting through it, can literally offer hope and purpose to others. That's where lasting meaning is found.
That is a powerful thought to leave listeners with. If you're out there struggling today, feeling alone, that resilience, that hope born from overcoming seemingly impossible, it is possible, and that hard-won knowledge, it stops being a burden. It becomes the key to a truly purposeful life.